Tonight's hobby enhancement is absent friends.
G'day, my name's Chris and welcome to part 5 of Rehabilitating the Dark Elves. Now, if you've seen part 4 you would have noticed I'm up to 1,000 points of a street legal Dark Elf army. So I had a bit of a think about it and decided, well, what do I have to do now to build it up to more like 1,500 points. And when I say 1,500 points, I'm thinking, I remember when 1,500 points was considered to be a perfectly large and normal sized game of Warhammer before, we all got gouged double the amount of money per miniature and then had to collect twice as many miniatures to have a normal sized game of 3,000 points, but there you go. So I had to rummage through the pile of second-hand figures and I thought, I'm going to need more core, so I've dug out some more crossbow. I've got 12 painted up already, so another 8 means 2 units of 10, that'll do nicely. Some of these are the same batch as what I painted last time. Already based for snow, but that'll do up just fine as dirt. And I grabbed a few more, or a few of these other ones which are painted up differently. Not sure how these will scrub up, but we will give them a go. And I wanted to paint something I hadn't already painted lots of already, so I dug up some of the Cold Bond Riders. Now I do have some of these that are plastic in good condition, not painted at all, and I've got some which are still actually new on sprue. They're old 6th edition boxes, but these ones looked like they needed the most work, and since this is a rehabilitation effort I thought I'd have a crack at these before the new guys. And the main problem with these chaps, when I started fixing them up, aside from falling off of their bases and things, the metal figures do not fit very well on the plastic monsters. Now I don't know if that's because somebody's gone and swapped out the plastic monsters that came with them originally, or whether they were just never a very good fit to begin with. Either's possible. We're going back quite a few years with these. So what had happened was some of them fit just fine, like this guy, but some of them were stuck on with a gap of about 5 to 10 mil between the saddle and the back of the actual cold one that they're riding. So I had to get in there with the scalpel and hack and slash at the inner thigh and feet of these chaps and cut the burrs and things off the middle, and that still didn't work. So I had to get into the plastic of the monsters and carve that away until they fit. This might be one I had a go at, maybe, or not. Yeah, here's one I definitely had a go at. You can see some of the incision marks there in the plastic where I basically scraped and scraped until I could get this bastard pressed down so that there's no gap between his saddle, or his ass, or his other bits, and the actual cold one itself. So that took an evening of hacking and slashing to bring all of that together, and then basing them up. So I'm using the same grit that I got from a pile of dirt out of the back of a rental house about 16 years ago. So that's all fine. Then I thought, well, I need something that's a bit interesting to keep it going, and doing a mixture of a couple of units and a character seemed to work alright. So I cracked this lovely fellow out of the blister pack that he was still in. So this is metal, it's white metal, it's tin, so it's after they got rid of lead, but it's before they switched to fine cast, also known as another kind of cast. Got some thoughts on how to do this chap as an assassin, so I'm going to have some fun with the cloak, see if I can get some interesting colour schemes up that are a little different to what we see anywhere else. And that will bring us up to 1,500 points quite comfortably. Maybe more, depending on how we then recalibrate things like the mage character. Might be more like 1,750 or something of that nature. But anyway, I will continue filming once I've slopped some paint on these fellas.
I've noticed it's usually been a while between these videos. This installment's excuses include changing jobs, assembling and base coating vast amounts of 15mm World War III kit, and doing up a couple of fleets for victory at sea. But I finally finished the latest batch of Dark Elves. So first up, another 8 crossbow, just like the first 12, so now I can do 2 units of 10, or something to that effect. So there we go, that's my complement of crossbows as it stands. And I can't tell which ones I painted before and which ones I only just painted. They're, yeah, well, who cares, they all look the same, they're in uniform. Next up, I painted the first 5 Cold One riders. These are the metal riders on the plastic mounts. Now, a quick, see if I can get this in focus. A quick comparison here with the newer ones. And these are the ones which I think are still on sale, just with a different base. And you might notice that the original plastic sculpts are just a little bit wider in the hips. Somewhere along the line they've got more toothy, more spiky, and a little bit more slender. While we're at it, let's have a comparison with the really old ones. This is a metal Cold One, with possibly the correct rider, I'm not sure. But you can see the difference in scale and composition of the beasts here as well. So they've gone through a few iterations over time. There we go. So besides the somewhat more rigid posture of the riders, and we'll talk about their rigidity a bit more in a moment, the old style plastic Cold Ones are a tad on the chunky monkey side. They look a bit more like they waddle than run, and I'm not 100% sure they're the right mounts for the riders. I got them second hand, so who knows. I actually had to cut into the Cold One's handlebars there to be able to fit the rider's legs around them. And fortunately, that's mostly concealed by the lead miniature. The cuts are mainly back here. A little bit of scraping through the legs there. And that's mostly concealed, so I don't think we've got too many post-liposuction marks there on the model. Fortunately, yeah, so they've come out all right. I stuck to the Monster Mash color scheme for these guys. They have to match the Corsair cloaks in terms of color scheme. As you may recall, the general idea is the Corsair cloaks are made out of any Cold Ones that, shall we say, fail their duty in the field. What my particular take on these fellas, they do anyway. So overall, I'm reasonably happy with the Cold Ones. I mean, they're not, they're not going to win me any awards, but for tabletop quality, for some fairly bashed up and chunky miniatures, they've come out passably for tabletop battles. That said, I have seen some brilliant stuff on the Facebook groups with people using washes over white to get lizard type color shades, and yeah, I reckon I'll have to try that if I do another army which has similar sorts of reptilian characters, because it's a hell of a good look when you get that sort of blend of washes right. The riders were actually a bit of a surprise challenge. You might notice when you look at these fellas. Try and get a focus shot there for you. I realised that I'd actually forgotten how to do metal very well. Got away with it with the crossbow, but these guys with their full plate armor, they're a little bit different. Ooh, focus. There we go. Yeah, so I had some challenges painting metal, and I realised that the last two armies I did were demons, which had very little metal on them, and wood elves, which have even less metal. And I haven't painted plate armor since the mid-2000s, so it's come up a bit scratchy. So I'll have to work on that, and I'll have to remember how to water it down, get the blend right and all that sort of thing. It's also worth noting I'm lazy, and I'm sort of trying to simplify the painting for efficiency so that I actually managed to finish this army one day. So amongst other things, when I was painting the riders, I just basically slopped black wash all over them instead of black for the armor, and grey, brown I mean, for the tassels on the lances. So the contrast has come out a bit stronger than I would have thought, I would have otherwise planned, but you know, they're dark elves, they'll do. If I was to paint those again, the generic light brown or ochre wash, whatever the hell they call it these days, Reich shade or something, would have been better. Now, partway through painting these fellas, I remembered an odd bit of fluff from the army book. Apparently, the cold ones secrete some toxin that makes the riders numb to touch and unable to feel pain. That's fine and all for being a murderous hard ass, but it does also mean that they have no sensation, as it were, and won't be able to perform those sorts of functions that require sensation. Basically, they're all impotent, including that fellow from the comics. Worth noting, I think I've got that guy as a special character I've set aside to ride a dragon, and, well, you know, he's not quite the romantic soul that he might be otherwise pictured to be. I'm sure they could, you know, pay a hag witch for a potion or something, but, you know, still. While I was at it, I also added this bloke to the fray. I've been trying to keep it simple by doing black as a plain monocolour with no wash or highlights, but seemed like a bit of a waste given the cloak is such a key feature of this model. So I did some very basic dry brushing over the cloak just to bring out the texture and folds. Took about 2 minutes and reminded me of what was considered a good standard of painting back in the early 90s when I started on this silliness. I did consider doing the cloak in 1980s US Army Murdoch camo as a cheeky tie-in to my 15mm World War III army, but I am so fucking over painting Murdoch that I decided against it. That, and I've got another 3 or 4 assassins to go yet, and I've only got so much masochism. This is the whole army as it stands, now up to getting close to 1600 points, and looking both balanced and capable of doing some mischief. Back in the early 90s, this 1500 or 1600 points would have been considered a large and hearty force before the points creep and model count escalation that peaked in 8th edition. Now we're going to be starting a mini campaign soon. Hopefully I'll feature a few games of that on this channel. It would have started already, but we had a COVID lockdown and real life like jobs got in the way. So the delay's given me time to get these extra bits finished, so I reckon I'll field them in the campaign. I'll convince myself that it's extra incentive to actually finish the last 3,000 points or so that I've still got to do. just as soon as I finish the British fleet for Victory at Sea and the merchant convoy and all the extra flights of aircraft and maybe that company of Murdoch camouflaged US Marines for Team Yankee. Yeah. Oh, and I do have a game tomorrow night, hopefully, unless COVID gets in the way once again. So I might blood these fellas and, if opportunity permits, do a video of that and see how it all goes. In the meantime, I'll do some gratuitous close-up of this lot. There we go. Shooters. 5 heads of naughtiness. 25 of these Corsairs. An assassin will pop up somewhere. Elvira. A slightly later edition. 5 heads of nastiness. More shooters. And now some cavalry. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. Hit like, subscribe, etc. I think it's time to call it a day.